Is the $520 DJI Osmo Pocket 3 better than the $2,200 Sony ZV-E1? Obviously not, but it comes really close in certain cases. Also, the price I mentioned for the ZV-E1 is without a lens. With the lens I'm using, the Sony 20mm f1.8, the price goes up to $3,100, and I don't think it's worth spending this much money on a vlogging camera if you don't make money from it. Some would even say that it's not worth spending this much money on a vlogging camera, period, but that's a totally different video. I think for most people, the Pocket 3 is going to be more than good enough to create awesome content on YouTube, social media, etc., or documenting your life. I've been really enjoying using this camera for the last month, and in certain cases, I love it more than the ZV-E1. But regardless, let's compare both of these cameras in terms of image quality, stabilization, overheating, battery life, etc., to see which camera is better for you and how close the Pocket 3 gets to the ZV-E1. Starting with the design, the ZV-E1 has a typical mirrorless camera design. However, for a full frame camera, it's really compact and light, though not as compact and light as the Pocket 3. It weighs 483 grams on its own, 857 grams with a 20mm f1.8 attached, and 934 grams with a freewheel VND filter added, whereas the Pocket 3 weighs only 278 grams with a case, tripod mounting extension, a mounting plate, and a freewheel ND filter attached. So in terms of size and weight, the Pocket 3 definitely wins. You can easily put it in your pocket or a compact bag, and when using it, it won't attract as much attention because it's smaller and more inconspicuous. Moving on to battery life and overheating, the Pocket 3 actually records for a longer duration than the ZV-E1 based on a short recording test I ran in 4K 25p at a room temperature of roughly 28 degrees Celsius. It recorded for 133 minutes before shutting down due to low battery, while the ZV-E1 only recorded for 110 minutes before shutting down due to low battery as well. So based on my test, it seems that the battery life on the Pocket 3 is actually better, and neither camera is really suffering from overheating in a comfortable room temperature. However, the ZV-E1 has the advantage of swapping the battery and starting a new recording session right away, whereas on the Pocket 3 the battery is not swappable, which can lead to battery degradation over time. However, it does charge really quickly. I think it takes about 20 minutes to charge from 0 to 80% with a compatible charger, which is really awesome. Moving on, the ZV-E1 also has weather sealing, whereas the Pocket 3 does not. The ZV-E1 has a larger flippy screen, which makes it much easier to monitor yourself while vlogging. It also has more customization options in the menu and more customizable physical buttons, which makes shooting much easier and quicker. Moreover, the ZV-E1 is an interchangeable lens camera, which means you can attach any compatible lens and change the field of view without sacrificing image quality, whereas the Pocket 3's field of view is fixed at about 20mm in full frame terms, unless you use the wide angle lens adapter, which turns the field of view to about 15mm. Now let's talk about image quality. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the Pocket 3 has better image quality than the ZV-E1, because it does not. However, in my opinion, the Pocket 3 is the only camera on the market that can truly compete with the ZV-E1 in terms of video specs and image quality, especially considering its price point. It can shoot up to 4K 120p 10-bit video with a log or HLG profile, just like the ZV-E1. However, the ZV-E1 has the better 4:2 color sampling, and it can record at a higher bit rate of up to 500 megabits, whereas the Pocket 3 only has 4:0 color sampling and it can only record up to 130 megabits. Also, let's not forget that the ZV-E1 has a full frame sensor versus a 1-inch sensor on the Pocket 3, providing a wider dynamic range, better low light performance, and shallower depth of field, especially when paired with a good prime lens. So it's pretty obvious that the ZV-E1 has better image quality, there's no doubt about that. The real question is how close the Pocket 3 can get to the image quality of the ZV-E1. And let me tell you, it's really close. The colors from both cameras are very similar. They provide accurate colors straight out of the camera, making it much easier to color grade in post-production. Both cameras have a similar dynamic range performance of up to about 13 stops. I think on the ZV-E1 it's actually a bit higher, but don't quote me on that. It's very similar between these cameras, and I'm actually very surprised by how wide the dynamic range is on the Pocket 3 when shooting in D-Log-M. It comes really close to the ZV-E1, all while being so compact and light. Moving on, both cameras perform exceptionally well in low light due to their low megapixel count sensors. The ZV-E1 features the legendary A7S III/FX3 12 megapixel sensor with a dual base ISO of 640 and 12,800, providing very clean low light results. DJI took a similar approach with the Pocket 3, opting for a new low count 9 megapixel sensor that delivers fantastic low light results. I'm actually quite impressed with the low light performance of the Pocket 3 when compared to the ZV-E1. The ZV-E1 still wins because you can't really beat physics, but I'm so happy that DJI took the same approach as Sony with this camera, A7S III and FX3, because this is what gives this camera, the Pocket 3, the great low light performance and also the wide dynamic range. Now, whenever I use either of these cameras, I always shoot in log and manually expose all of my shots to get the absolute best results when it comes to image quality. However, here's how both of them look on automatic settings without any color grading. Specifically, I have the ZV-E1 set to aperture priority with an aperture of f5.6, as that's roughly what you get on the Pocket 3 in full frame terms. Let's do a quick spin here. That's also actually the first time I'm shooting on automatic settings on either of these cameras. Like I said, I always shoot in log to get the absolute best results, and I think it makes no sense paying $2,200 for a camera and then about $500 to $1,000 for a lens and shooting everything on automatic. I'm speaking about the ZV-E1. Moving on to audio, here's a quick built-in microphone comparison between these two cameras while I'll explain the audio advantages of each. The ZV-E1 has the advantage of having a cold shoe mount to install any microphone on it, as well as a 3.5mm mic jack to connect pretty much any microphone to it. It also has much superior preamps, which results in cleaner audio when using external microphones. The Pocket 3, on the other hand, has a Type-C port that accepts 3.5mm external microphones with an adapter such as the Boya BYK4, or you can connect a USB-C microphone directly to the Pocket 3 as well. And if you get the Creator combo, you can connect the DJI Mic 2 to the Pocket 3 without using a receiver because it has one built in. Alright, so now I'm back to my external microphone. The audio quality should be much better than the internal microphones on either of these cameras, but let me know down below which one you think sounds better, the ZV-E1 or the Pocket 3. And let's talk about autofocus. The ZV-E1 offers significantly more customization options for autofocus. You can adjust the speed and sensitivity, utilize eye autofocus, switch the focus subject from humans to animals or moving objects like cars and planes, and it's also quicker and more reliable. In contrast, the Pocket 3 has only 3 focus modes: single for capturing motionless subjects, continuous for capturing moving subjects, and product showcase mode for displaying subjects closer to the camera, such as when doing product reviews. Right now I'm using continuous autofocus on both cameras and both seem to be working just fine. Actually, I don't even have to talk about the ZV-E1 because it has one of the best autofocus systems on the market, but the Pocket 3 works really well and snappy when it comes to autofocus from my personal experience with the camera. No problem at all.
Here's Sony. Very accurate and fast. I think for most people, the Pocket 3 is going to be more than good enough when it comes to autofocus. I love it. It's just that it lacks customization, such as adjusting the autofocus speed, sensitivity, and so on, but it definitely excels in terms of tracking. So the ZV-E1 has this feature called framing stabilizer. As you can see, it follows me basically around the frame, and it works really well, pretty quick and snappy, but it has its limitations. For example, if I'm going to step out of the field of view of the actual lens, it's not going to be able to track me anymore because the camera cannot physically move with me. However, for the Pocket 3, this is not a big deal because it's a gimbal and it can basically rotate around and follow me, as you can see. However, it also has a limitation of having a rotation of only up to 270 degrees, not 360, but it works much better than the ZV-E1 because it moves the gimbal physically rather than cropping in, losing quality and so on. And also if I want to, for example, put myself in the rule of thirds right here, I can just move the joystick and it's going to keep me in this position no matter where I move. Let's go down, still there. Another area where the Pocket 3 wins is stabilization, because the camera is on an actual gimbal, and a gimbal will work always better than digital stabilization like on the ZV-E1. Don't get me wrong, the stabilization on the ZV-E1 works really well, but not as well as using an actual gimbal. And also, it has a crop of 1.2 when using active stabilization and 1.3 when using dynamic stabilization, which means you're going to lose a bit from the field of view of your lens. So now let me answer the main question of this video. Is the DJI Pocket 3 better than the Sony ZV-E1? Like I said in the beginning of the video, obviously not. These are two different cameras, different tools, but I think for the majority of people, the Pocket 3 is going to be the better choice. It's very simple to use with fantastic image quality, low light performance, tracking abilities, and it all fits in your pocket. However, I personally like having both because they serve different purposes. The ZV-E1 is a good studio camera, live streaming camera, and even a travel camera in some cases, especially if you need to change lenses and change the field of view. On the other hand, the Pocket 3 is a fantastic pocket travel/vlogging camera, a B camera, and even in some cases an A camera. I used this camera more than a couple of times as my main YouTube studio camera, and I was more than happy with the results. Thanks for watching.